Hello and welcome to this tutorial. What we're looking at here is when you get your photographs, it's analysing your photographs and saying, what do I need to do to make this look better? Because that is where a lot of people actually go wrong from the first instance, is they're not analysing the photograph and what they can do to improve it. They just look at it and say, oh well, I might crop it or I might do this, and not really analyse what's there. So let's analyse this photo, which is a macro shot that I took locally. And what I'm going to say about it straight away is that the object's too central. So we're talking now about composition. So let's put that right first of all. So in that case we would use the crop tool. So I'm going to click on the crop tool, and when I use a crop tool, very nice, you get this grid, and that allows me to use the rule of thirds, which I don't use in all cases, but I think in this case it looks better. So I'm cutting off these areas. I'm going to go for more of a square composition probably. I'm going to drag this up maybe bring that in a little bit more, or something like that, and I press enter on the keyboard. So that's sorted out. We've now got a better composition. So let's analyse the next part of it, the light. Now if we look at the object, your eye is distracted from the light coming from the flower there because it's much brighter, much lighter, so it's distracting away from the actual main subject. So how can we rectify that? And this is something that I've gone over many times, and it's probably my most used method in Photoshop for doing this type of work, and it's simply the Lasso Tool. So what I would do is, light doesn't work in little spots all over your image, and sometimes you can adjust things by selecting colours and all that type of thing, and changing colours and whatever. But light really is either shadow or lightness. It's a block of light or a block of shadow or whatever. So that is how I like to work with the Lasso Tool. That is what I think about. So I'm going to click on the Lasso Tool, and the big thing with this is using this feather. Now if you're working with a big image like this, my feather is set on 70, so you need to really analyse this on your own picture. If you've cropped it down just a little bit and you're working fairly large, 70, 60, 50 would probably be around the best setting, but practice and just try different settings. And all I'm going to do, I'm looking at the light areas of the picture. Now also we're losing a little bit of detail on this light area, so if we darken this area, so and it's very rough this, all we do is we drag over the area that I want to darken. Right, because I'm using this big feather, it's not critical. I haven't got to be, you know, a great draw or anything like that. It's just a rough guide of the area that I want darker. And then what we use is a curve layer. Now the curve layer will only work on the area that's selected. So we go to the adjustments, I'll click on curves, which is the one there, and up comes the curves. I'll just make this a little bit bigger just so we can see what we're doing. And it's very easy. We work from the middle, and if I want to make it lighter, I go up towards this corner, and if I want it darker, I go down towards this corner. So I want to make it darker, so I'll start from the middle, I'll click, and I drag towards that corner. And you can see now I'm just darkening that part of the image. That's it. Now you can do things like this in Lightroom. A lot of people say, well, I can do that in Lightroom, and you can. It's much harder though. You use a brush and it's not quite so sensitive of doing it this way, or you can use brushes in Photoshop as well. you've got so much more power with the brushes and selections and doing things like this in Photoshop. So when I'm in Lightroom, I do my basic raw conversion, and anything else I do in Photoshop. And a reason for that is, let's say I've made that adjustment in Lightroom. If I wasn't quite happy with that and I just wanted to adjust it a little bit, I've got to more or less start again. I've got to start changing things. But in Photoshop, because you've got layers, I can simply say, well, if that's a bit too much, I can go to the opacity on the layer and I can drag it back. I can drag it back all the way. So I've got much more instant control of exactly what I want. So it's easier to tweak and to change things. Okay, so I've done that. And also I would say, well, this probably now needs to be a little bit lighter, the actual subject itself, and I'll do the same thing again. I'll make a selection, very rough. I'm going to be an artist in any shape or form. It's very, very loose. Just going over the area, I want to brighten up a little bit. There we are. And I'm on the add to selection button on there. That's just so you can add to your selection. If you'd gone over an area and you wanted to take a bit off, then the subtract button is there, and you would just say, oh, I didn't want that bit there, I'll just take that off a little bit. There you go. So you can use any of these buttons to add or subtract from the selection. Remember, again, we're using this large feather, so when we use, again, once again, exactly the same, but this time going the opposite way. From the middle, I'm going to drag up towards that corner, and I'm just going to add a little bit of light. It's not going over the top, it's just slight adjustments. Okay, so now we've got the composition better. We've analysed the picture, we've looked at areas, we've darkened some, we've lightened some. Very, very easy. Yeah, and this is, a lot of people get really frightened by Photoshop. If you learn these very basic techniques, these are things you can use on every image. And I guarantee you they will instantly make your photographs better. So this is really important to learn these very few basic steps of using the lasso tool and curves just to adjust things to exactly how you want them. Okay, so let's look at the layers now. So we've got three layers. We've got our background layer. I'm just going to duplicate this one. So I'm going to right click and duplicate that layer, just so we've got the original image protected. And working on this layer, I'm now going to say, well, let's analyse it a little bit more. Let's look at more detail of this. And one thing that sticks out straight away to me is this mark on the eye. Now, for this I'm going to use the spot healing tool. And this is great on things like compound eyes, because if we're just doing little things like this, I'll click and drag, because it's got such a good pattern on there, it does a pretty good job of cleaning up areas like this. It's really good at analysing that pattern and maintaining it across the eye. So I'm just cleaning up a little few areas. This is just pollen on there, and I'm not going to take all of it away, but I'm just going to take away a few little areas just to, there we go. That's fine. Okay, so we touched up, it was the eye mainly I was concerned about because it was distracting. Let's just look at the original, and you can see you've got that distraction there. Okay, and some people say, I don't want to edit my pictures, and that's fine, you haven't got to. But if you're in a position where you may want to enter into competitions, or you want to sell your images especially, you need to learn these things. You need to do this, because no one's going to buy inferior photographs. And it's not really cheating, you're touching it up. It's so much, better to actually do that and to get what you want, and to get a picture that's more sellable, or that's going to do better in competitions, or whatever. It's not going over the top. They're very slight, simple adjustments. So really, in most cases, it's similar to dodging and burning, but in a much easier way. And because we're using the layers, everything's separate. We can change opacity of things. We can adjust things very slightly, which you can't do in Lightroom. So Lightroom, yeah, you can do some of these things, but don't. Is my basic thing. Try to use Photoshop if you can. I mean, I know some people struggle with Photoshop, but learning these basics will overcome lots and lots of problems with your images. So it's analysing your photographs, and I hope that helps everybody. And I keep going, oh, this technique with Lasso Tool, it's a great technique. It's easy to do, it's easy to use, and it puts so many things right. You can't control, when you do your raw editing, you take down the shadows, it takes down all the shadows. If you take down the lightness, it takes all the lightness. Try and get a good basic raw image conversion that's more over the top in any way, and where you've got any shadow, anything, then use Photoshop just to take out the shadow or to add shadow to areas, as we've done with this photograph, and straight away you've got a better image. So let's have a look at how much better it is. I'm just going to put these in a group just so I can turn it off and on all in one fell sweep. So that's our original. There's a big difference in them. So you've now got an image that's perfect in almost every way. Okay, thanks for that. I hope you enjoyed the lesson.